Welcome back to the Culture Fit podcast, episode 3. Victor is in Melbourne this week, so I'll be presenting the first half, and some of our wonderful interns will share their stories in the fun half. This week's topic is study breaks. This can be mid-session or between sessions. We're focusing on what you can do in Sydney when your friends may be overseas or busy with other commitments. Whenever you have a study break, you'll usually have 3 things on your mind. 1, can I make more money? 2, how can I avoid being lonely in a new place and when my friends are busy or overseas? And 3, what can I do to make the most of my experience in Sydney? In this first segment, we'll cover the considerations around paid work on a student visa and the types of work you may want to consider looking for. If you're already sorted for work, we'll also go through the benefits of building connections through volunteering and what you may be involved in, especially over a holiday period. So let's talk about paid work on a student visa. Resting in between semesters and in the middle of semesters is very important for your ongoing studies. However, if you find yourself having a little more time or perhaps more concerns financially, it's important to look for work. And when you are looking for work, you need to take into account the 48-hour per fortnight time limit, fortnight meaning 2 weeks. So when you are studying, you cannot work for more than 48 hours in any 2-week period. I want you to imagine in 4 weeks, you had worked 15 hours, 30 hours, 30 hours, and 10 hours. You might think, oh, the first 2 is 48 hours, and week 3 and 4 is also within 48 hours. Actually, this is a violation because week 2 and week 3 were 30 and 30. So these 2 added up is more than 48 hours. So in other words, when they say 48 hours in a fortnight, starting on any given Monday, what they mean is a rolling window of 2-week periods. So if, for example, your current employer is asking you to do additional shifts at your existing workplace, you need to take that into consideration so that if you do an additional shift now, you may have to reduce your shift the week after. It's also important to think about the industry in which you're working and the sorts of availability that you may need in order to work in that area. For example, here's a list of typical jobs that students may engage in. This includes tutoring, especially at the university level. If you are pretty good in a given subject or in a broad area, you may find tutoring work for other international students, or at maybe a high school level, especially when it comes to things like maths and science. Freelance work, if you are working or studying in an area such as graphic design or maybe some sort of production work, you may find freelance work, especially if in any given period of time, they may need someone to come along and help do a few jobs here and there on a contracting basis. There's also the tried and true retail and hospitality, whether it's stores, whether it's food, whether it's events as well, especially during the holiday season. It's important to note that a lot of these jobs can come and go as demand rises and falls. Also, driving, cleaning, and maybe other seasonal work. Now, let's talk about ways to find jobs. First and foremost, if you don't know anyone and you're currently not in employment, one of the perhaps easier ways is through the New South Wales government and seek.com.au's partnership. If you go to seek.com.au and you search hashtag NSW Jobs Connect, you'll find jobs that are more suited to international students. Now, to be clear, some of these jobs may require some certification. For example, barista jobs, that is making coffee, and the different types of coffees involved, require some sort of training and certification. If you don't have that certification, you can obtain that relatively easily. Beyond looking for jobs on various websites, you can also ask around. And I think this is one of those very underappreciated things that a lot of people hear. They'll hear, oh, a friend of a friend got a job for me, etc. And people think, oh, it's people know people and things like that. Sometimes when you know some people, but you may not necessarily be that close, it's okay to just ask, hey, we've been studying for a while, hanging around for a while, we're pretty friendly with one another. I'm looking for work at the moment. Do you know if there's any jobs anywhere? If you do, I would really appreciate it if you can direct me to those jobs. I'm still happy to apply in the same process as everyone else, but hey, if it helps, put in a good word for me. All right. The other side of this is if you already have a job, and here I'm referring to certain work such as tutoring and freelancing, sometimes being direct, especially in a country like Australia, which we've talked about before, where it's a little more direct compared to a lot of other places. Sometimes you can just say to the person that you're tutoring, or if they are in secondary school or primary school even, you can ask their parents, do you know if there's anyone else who's looking for tutoring? Certainly from my own personal experiences, I spent a number of years when I was studying, and also even when I started working, I was tutoring 3, 4 students every week in the suburb where I lived. So I would go to university, I take bus, go to uni, and then come back home. And in the evening, 2, 3 nights a week, I would do tutoring. And the reason I was able to find all of those students is because people know people, right? If I tutor one person and they found my style to be, in my case, maths, to be particularly approachable, and they had pretty good results, they're happy to reach out to their friends. And often they will ask you, hey, I know someone who might be interested. And that's how you can build up a bit of a client base as well. Likewise with freelance work. And also perhaps with cleaning if you are doing cleaning privately and not part of a company. But let's suppose that you're not too worried about work. However, your friends are no longer in Sydney because they've gone home for the holidays, or maybe they have other commitments. Maybe their family is in Sydney and they wanted to spend the mid-semester break, or the breaks in between the study sessions with their family. Well, what do? You may feel lonely, and that's okay. It's okay to say that. You're in a new place, you don't know that many people here. Volunteering is a great way to get in touch with other people, to be part of a broader community. Now, from the perspective of Communiteer, as you can see, I'm wearing the shirt, we offer a lot of volunteering programs. If you go to our website and sign up to our mailing list, you'll see a lot of the opportunities and the programs like the airport welcome desk and the body programs and things like that. But let's suppose you didn't want to volunteer with us. There are plenty of not-for-profits and charities in Australia who really, really need that additional help, especially during 2 peak seasons. One is towards the end of the calendar year, so around Christmas, and the other is in the middle of the year when it's winter, when it's especially cold, helping services like Meals on Wheels and Oz Harvest and a lot of these other services is also a great way to connect with other people who are not necessarily international students. So with Communiteer's programs, most of our programs are targeted towards volunteering for international students. But if you go outside of Communiteer, you may find yourself amongst a lot of older, maybe younger, maybe professionals who are not international students. And that can help you build relationships, that can help you improve your language skills, that can help you maybe even considered for work, because You know a lot of these people, and they might say, "Oh, I work in retail, I work in hospitality. We need some seasonal staff. Would you be interested?" That's known to happen. Once again, not promising anything, but certainly it is something that if you're not there, then you won't have that opportunity. But let's suppose you didn't want to venture too far outside of your study and work. There are also university clubs and societies, and many of these will run events over the study breaks. So, depending on what you're interested in, this is a great way to connect with potentially international students and also with local students. When I was studying at UTS, one of the societies that was very active was the Electronics Gaming Guild. And they would run a lot of events where people get together. They have a whole bunch of PCs and board games and things like that, and card games, and people come along and play. Now, you might think, what's the volunteering in that? Well, actually, the executives of the society have to do a lot of work in terms of setup, in terms of coordination, in terms of communicating via email and in person to anyone who might be interested and who come along just to check things out. So, even in that space, if the thing that you're passionate about is sitting in your room playing video games, you can still engage in volunteering in a space where you meet new people and exercise a lot of the skills that you may be developing in your studies anyway. In conclusion, being able to do some work when you're on break will definitely set you up financially for the semester ahead. If you find yourself in a place where, even though you are working quite a lot and you're financially okay, what about your social and emotional needs? It's important to acknowledge that, regardless of who you are. You're in a new place, you may not have family, your friends may not be available. This is a time for you to branch out into new spaces, try new things, and being in a place with people who share similar values will mean you are much more likely to meet people who are not only very friendly, but you can form long term connections with. So, without further ado, let's move on to the fun half, where we'll talk about free activities that you can engage with around Sydney during the holiday period.